Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So way back, way before I became a team rider for Severn, I used to only have one setup, which was a free ride board and a Gator 47 from Severn. This setup, I used to literally use it in all kind of conditions. But at that time, it was for me the best thing on earth. That was only because I was using only that gear. So I've learned in that time how to sail in a way to be able to manage the gear in overpowered and underpowered conditions. So this brings me to today's topic, which is how to widen your wind range. So I think there's a big misconception in the world of windsurfing that you need a very wide range of windsurf gear. And I think for a lot of people who wants to get into the sport, it can be really discouraging to see how much gear you need in order to do the sport. And not only the gear that you need, it's also to be able to transport all that gear. And I think that message has been sent out wrong to the general public about the sport. And in fact, it can even be more beneficial for you as a windsurfer and your sailing technique if you learn how to narrow down and how to widen your wind range. Obviously, it makes 100% sense if you are a top windsurfer and you are taking part at the PWA and world-class events like that, when it's your profession, to have all the different sizes and in-betweens in order to keep right at the front of the fleet and always be on the perfect setup for the specific wind in that moment. But for most people who windsurf for fun and for enjoyment, this is definitely not at all a necessity. And in fact, if you learn how to use limited sizes in wider wind ranges, you become a better windsurfer. Your technique improves and your feeling with your gear improves, and you learn how fine settings and fine tuning works. You learn how to manage your gear in a much wider wind range. So only once I became a team rider for Severn, I was given a very wide range of sail sizes, and which was amazing. I think that when I first got all these sizes, I was so stoked to have all these sizes that I was constantly changing around gear. Whenever the wind changed a little bit, I would just change around gear just because I could. So normally my range would be 7.8, 7.62, 5.5, 4.7, 4.2 and 3.7, where the past few months I had the golden opportunity to narrow down only to two sail sizes, the 7 and the 5.5. These two sizes has been standing in for the time being until all the 2021 gear arrives, as you would have seen on my Facebook and Instagram posts. I think everyone is pretty excited to see all the 2021 gear. With COVID, everything got very much delayed. So in this time, my 5.5 and my 7 and my very old Blade Pro 4.2 has been standing in, and I've used only these three sails in all kinds of conditions so far this season. I mean, here in Langebaan, we get something of everything each day. The wind varies from super light, flat water to super strong, choppy, heavy winds. So I think a lot of you guys can relate, especially informal races. There'll always be those windsurfers who tend to change gear the whole time. Like, you'll see them, the wind picks up like 5 knots and they'll be changing around gear. And I definitely used to be like that a way back. I tend to quickly change down to wave gear from my 5.5 if it gets way too strong for me. Likewise with the 7, always used to be very quick to switch down to 6.2 when the wind just went over a certain amount of strength without even thinking or trying further. And so this time has been extremely good for me to force myself to hold on to the 7 or the 5.5 in winds that way exceeds the amount of wind that I used to hold it down in. And likewise with underpowered conditions. Guys tend to think that if you're sailing underpowered, it's a really bad thing. You should always be slightly overpowered, especially when training, which is true in a way, because sailing overpowered definitely gives you that heavy amount of force that you need to keep control over. But when sailing slightly underpowered, it opens up a whole new world of challenges where you really need to change a lot of things in the way you stand on the board, the way you transfer your weight and the lightness on your feet. It's a much more delicate technique to keep on planing when you're actually a little bit underpowered to get through the lulls. And I think it's important skills, because say you're in a racing situation and the wind suddenly drops and there is no time to change sails, then you have these skills to keep on planing through holes just by tweaking slight movements of your body and weight positioning on the board. If you had to scale down or if you have limited gear, what worked for me personally is having a light wind setup and a high wind setup, and then obviously one wave setup. I've got 2 different fins for each. Just having 2 different fin sizes per setup opens up such a wide range of wind you can take on with that gear. Take for example my high wind setup, my 5.5 and my Fox. In ideal conditions on that gear, which is mid 20, high 20 knots, I would normally have my 32 gas wheel fin in there. So the moment the wind drops a little bit, I just exchange my 32 fin for my 34 fin. And that opens up a whole new level of sailing conditions that I can still take on with the 5.5 and the 95 litre Fox. Putting in a slightly bigger fin gives you so much more momentum through the lulls. It gives you that little bit extra lift to get more effortless speed. Especially when you're slightly underpowered and there's lots of holes. Likewise, when the wind picks up in overpowering conditions, then my 32 gas wheel fin takes me way up into the 30 knots before I even need to touch my wave gear. So the first most important thing that you rather need to invest in instead of investing in a massive wide range of sails is proper fin sizes. The second thing that is super helpful in widening your wind range is investing in a proper outhaul adjustment kit, especially on the big size. For my 7, the outhaul is the main factor that helps me to widen my wind range. That sail now, after all this time sailing super light wind on it, where I would have normally gone over to my 7.8, just by loosening up the outhaul, I've almost transformed that sail into a sail that I can take on in the same conditions I used to use my 7.8 in. On super light wind days where I feel slightly underpowered on the 7, it's really important to sail light on your feet. So you don't stand on the fin, especially when you want to get going. You put a lot more pressure and weight onto the boom. Press lightly onto the fin, give it a few pulses. You'll see how quickly that board gets going if you are lighter on your feet. So it's really very easy if you're powered up to just stand on the fin, lock in and go. So if you're underpowered, your body weight goes a lot more forward, and that takes off the pressure of the fin to help it to flow until it creates enough lift to get out and get planing on speed. When it is strong and when it becomes overpowered, the type of winds that I would have normally gone down to a 6.2, I just exchange my 38 fin for the 36 and I tighten the outhaul slightly. So when you release your downhaul slightly, the sail will have more power. I think there's a lot of people who just they downhaul the sail and they forget about it. They don't think about it again. But the downhaul has a massive impact on the amount of power and stability in the sail. So when you're feeling very underpowered, let the downhaul loose slightly. And likewise, if you're way overpowered, pull in some more downhaul so that the sail opens up, twists more. It gives you a lot more control in strong gusts. The tack strap, especially in light winds, make sure to pull that tack strap in very tightly. That sail has to have a nice belly at the bottom to give you nice momentum and power from the bottom. Another important aspect also when you are fine tuning is to determine different settings for your boom height. When I sometimes feel that I'm a little bit out of control with the chop and it's really high wind and gusty, it's very helpful to drop the boom down for me. I get way further away from my gear to be with my body outside over the board to manage chop well and to get the board to rail so that it lifts and keep planing over the chop and through the lulls. Then of course I can definitely also say that it does help to have the sails that you do have really high quality trusted brand, where the sails have got a lot of stability, lots of power. The sails of Severn made with such a deep profile, and that gives you so much room for fine tuning. And the sails are very stable and forgiving, especially when you're using the correct mast in them. The Severn masts have got the right amount of flex when you use the apex masts, and also the RDM masts in the smaller sizes, which makes the whole setup really light and easy to maneuver. So that also really helps a lot with taking the same size sail on in a much wider wind range. I used to have a mental block where I know, okay, this is now the limit of wind strength. I need to change down to the 6.2. I can't sail this strong wind anymore with the 7. And most of that is normally a mental thing. So now when I was left with only the 7 and a very big jump down to the 5.5, I forced myself to keep on holding on to the 7 before changing down. The first run in strong winds might be a little bit scary and nerve-wracking, but your body gets used to it, especially if you've got really good fins in. Just by staying locked in and not losing confidence. I think one of the biggest aspects of windsurf performance is your mental confidence. And I found that especially after the shoulder operation, the second shoulder operation. If you guys have been following my social media, it has been a big mental challenge for me to break through all the fears. I had a battle, especially with the jibes. I did really bad jibes in the beginning. I wasn't committed at all. And not being committed, fully committed, going in for a jibe is a recipe for disaster. And the same with sailing in overpowered conditions. The first time I sailed in overpowered conditions after the shoulder operation, I had Shoal with me because I wouldn't do it alone. And it took a few weeks to just build up enough confidence to lock in and rail the board, to get lift and to go full speed over the chop like I used to in the past. And actually the road to that point, the things that I used to do when I held back and when I was unsure, those are actually the things that are most prone to make you out of control and to make the board climb out of the water. Sheeting out and not being locked, not leaning back off the board. So you're standing more upright, you are scared, so you're feeling a lot more impact of the chop. Whereas when you lean out, the board can fly off the chop and your body is off center. So it takes a lot of the hammering off of your legs when approaching choppy conditions at high speed. These are all techniques that you need a lot of mental strength for. Especially when you have a confidence dip after something like a shoulder operation, which is definitely one of the reasons why I tend to too quickly change down in sail size. And also knowing I'm much lighter than my friends sailing with me. When they are on the same size as me, I always used to be very worried because something is seriously wrong. I am really looking forward to having my full range of sails again. There's definitely great benefit in that, but the skills that I've learned in this time has been golden for me. It has really accelerated my confidence level and my recovery mentally from my shoulder operations. And it definitely taught me a lot about my gear, my fine tuning, also my abilities, because I am now definitely holding down much bigger sizes in stronger winds than in the past. Even if you have a really wide range of windsurf sails, I would really recommend just taking some time out and focusing on just a couple of sizes and to rather learn the skills of fine tuning. And those are all things that is going to benefit you as a windsurfer in the future, whether you're going to be racing or sailing for fun. Not having to constantly change sail sizes is a win-win situation. You save a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you spend a lot more time actually sailing when other people are running around, changing sail sizes, and then the wind is up, the wind is down. So far this season, I've definitely not been limited off the water because I don't have the right sail size. Whatever the conditions has been, I have been out there on the water sailing, having a blast. So the limited sizes definitely does not take out any of the enjoyment of windsurfing. It does not take out any options in going out in different kinds of wind strengths. So I hope I've encouraged you to learn how to widen your wind range on your gear. Make sure you also check out my video that I made about how to rig for proper slalom sailing performance. In that video, I'll put up the link for you guys here. I've described exactly how I fine-tune my gear with regards to the outhaul, the downhaul, the tack strap, harness lines, boom height, mast rack positioning. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm always super happy to help. This is the purpose of my channel. It's all my experiences and what I learn and to try different things. Make sure to follow me on my Instagram and my Facebook page as well. And subscribe to my channel to stay up to date for all the coming videos.